Her story deals with a subculture of heavy metal music that some feel is sending a dangerous message to your kids.
The forces of evil on the dark side of devil right.
And I want to talk tonight about the devil and demons and witches and wizards.
And we just mix it up with hardcore and aggression and come out with something we think's an original sound.
Loud, fast, heavy, you know.
Well, what do you got?
What do you got?
You're listening to Riff Worship, the podcast that attempts to answer the age-old question, what makes a riff? Why do we care about riffs? Talking about albums containing some of our favorite riffs. I'm one of your hosts, Austin Paulson. With me, as always, my stooges in music, Justin Swindle, Dylan Adams.
Really putting us in our place.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Jesus, high off a graveyard show, and he comes in doing this shit. It's fucking 100 degrees out here in whatever state Swindle and I live in. He's fucking grinning and bearing it because they had a cold front. God damn it. Let's just get on with this shit.
I ain't fucking around.
Doing all right, bud.
Yeah, that's right. I did get to see Laser Floyd at the cemetery. That was awesome.
Laser Floyd.
It was really cool. I had, like Dan from Selenoplexia, I remember, had gone to a show there, and they've put on some different events, but this is like the first time I'd ever been out to Bohemian National Cemetery, and it's kind of like out of the way, but it was incredible. Like the whole atmosphere of it. They had a bunch of vendors there. I got some. I met up with our good friend and Chained to the Bottom of the Ocean. Got to hang out a little bit.
Binghamton.
Got some tacos. My favorite part of the tacos, though, I was like, I go up to the bar, and they're like, "Oh, what can I get you?" I'm like, "Oh, can I get 3 chicken tacos with whatever the hottest sauce you have?" And the lady I kid you not, the lady turned around and was like, "Yeah, I need 3 tacos with stupid sauce."
She knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I think she only called it that because you were the person that ordered it.
She was right. It was good. I ate it up. But
if you stuck around the booth, they would have called it something else when somebody else ordered it.
That band made it 6 minutes into one 20-minute song, and you were scoping the exit, like finding some sort of tombstone to go behind.
I wasn't about to go in those porta-johns at the
mausoleum.
Something grab up at you. Yeah, I got lost, and
it's not like they'd care.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
I'm thirsty. You guys got any moron juice here? Like, god damn. But it was incredible. Like that was the first time I got to see them especially on this album cycle. But they're tight. Well, Paul's tight.
I kind of talked to y'all about this off air, but I didn't mention the most awkward part. I went to Today is the Day. The day before we recorded this, there was a storm in Louisville the day of the show, and Portal, the venue it was supposed to be at, the electricity got cut off, so they had to move it to Spinelli's. I had never been to the Spinelli's that has shows. So I get there, and it just looks like a restaurant, and I'm just like, am I at the right fucking Spinelli's? And some fucking guy in a Suicide Silence t-shirt walks out of a walk-in cooler, and I'm like, just so confused. And then he walks back into the walk-in cooler, and I'm like, there's nowhere else that could possibly have the show. So I open the walk-in cooler door, and it's just a hallway that leads to the venue.
Oh my god.
I was just so fucking confused about where in the fuck this show was supposed to be happening.
Put the book back.
God.
They also had fake ham hanging from the side. It was plastic ham to confuse people.
Did you try it first? Is that why you know it's fake?
No. But then I get into the venue part, and I look at 2 people that are sitting right beside the door, and I'm like, hey, I bought my ticket before, and they were just like, we don't fucking work here.
God damn it.
So I was like, I couldn't talk to anyone. I was just so fucking anxious at that point. I was
God.
I got nothing to say to nobody.
How was it?
Was it good?
It was great. there were not that many people there. It was like maybe 50 people, but there were like 10 or 15 people that knew every fucking word. So
Damn.
like the energy was crazy. It was great to watch. People have so much fucking fun.
How old were those dudes?
I think if I wasn't the youngest person there, I looked like the youngest person there.
That makes sense. That's very fitting.
Hell yeah, dude.
There was a person that I like was just sure was Dixie Dave like the entire time. I still don't know if it wasn't or not.
It's just some random dude drinking cough syrup.
Yeah, just checks out.
But
Yeah.
he had like a trucker hat like pulled all the way fucking down, and he had like he was in like Timberland, or not Timberland boots, but like work boots and blue jeans and like a full like sleeve flannel in the middle of summer.
Oh my
I was
God.
just like, is this fucking Dixie Day? He had a huge gray beard. I'm not convinced that it wasn't until he tells me. Dixie, you listening to this? Tell me if that was you or not.
I need to know.
Dylan, what have you been up to? I don't even know.
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know either. I guess since the last time we talked, I did go to a show. I mean, that's been quite a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, what was the show? I forget.
Carnifex, Suffocation, Devourment,
Oh.
a couple other
Yeah.
bands too. Big Bill. I had an issue getting in the venue as well. Like, it's similar to Swindles. So obviously a lot of these bigger venues use like Ticketmaster and shit, right? So now usually you could just pull up the email, they scan the barcode on the email, go for it. I get there and the person like checking my ID is like, hey, just FYI, there's something up with Ticketmaster today. So like, it's going to be hard for you to pull up your ticket. I'm like, great, this is fantastic. I get to the next person who's supposed to scan the ticket. She's like, hey, show me your ticket. All right, here it is. Well, that's not your ticket. Even though the barcode's there, that's not your ticket. So she's like, do you have the app? It's like, no, I don't have a Ticketmaster app. I don't. You know, why would I? I very rarely go to Ticketmaster shows. She's like, oh, you can do it this way. They made me go to the box office, had to tell them my name, like print out a ticket as I'm holding up the line. So I get in there and just duck out real quick. Like just duck away and get away. I went, fuck it. I don't want to be here anymore.
Overstimmy. You got overstimmied immediately.
Why am I on this planet anymore?
Well, enough of your yapping. Much like Dylan talking about 04 as being a pivotal year, you can kind of go through your musical journey and pick out a time and remember the place you were when you heard specific records. 2013, we've talked about a few records from that year that were really important to me, helping me get into other forms of more extreme underground music. We're going to be talking about one of those records today. Underworlds, the third Mammoth Grinder record that was released on July 23rd through $20 spin. I fucking love this record. It's so much fun. We'll go back to this very often because it's not particularly long. It's kind of primal, but for the most part, you can kind of cook through it and then go right through it again. And that's kind of often what I do with a lot of this band's discography. But I don't know. I just, this band has kind of been active on and off throughout the years. They recently released an EP. So it just got me kind of excited to, venture back into their catalog. So I wanted to talk about it. So I guess my first question, as we often start with the show, is, are you familiar with Mammoth Grinder? Have you listened to this record? Have you listened to any Mammoth Grinder records?
I don't think I listened to this record. I've listened to the EP, the most recent EP, and I think I listened to the most recent release before that. The two most recent releases, I guess. I mean,
interesting. Which I'm sure we'll talk about. There's a very different record from it just, this band, even like the record or two before this one, pretty different. I think this one kind of is like got its like hands in both worlds, like the early stuff and ultimately what they're doing now. So I kind of like the mix of it. But Dylan, I'm sure you've listened to this band before.
I made a big mistake. I listened to Rumpelstiltskin Grinder Buried in the Front Yard instead. I was really excited to listen to that. No. So, in all seriousness, I am actually only familiar with this band with name basis alone. I've never listened to this band until I got to see Nails. Either tail end of last year, early this year, they were on that tour. You know, if I had gotten this band much earlier, I would have been much bigger fan of this kind of direction. The one thing I did take notice is that each release coming up to this and after sounds completely different from the release before. There's nuances and little things here within each release that would kind of push it to the next release that I liked. I like the progression that the band would make. It's almost like the band is learning to be a band throughout its kind of tenure there. You know, if I'd probably caught this when I was playing a lot of hardcore shows and stuff like that, I would have been a much bigger fan. It definitely veers on like the D-beat and kind of Discharge-esque stuff. Celtic Frost style death metal, that sort of thing. The really pounding drums and kind of dirgier parts. A lot of punk kind of transitions in this. Very just like, here's 4 chords, go for it. And with a couple riffs sprinkled in there. Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. I think it's got a lot of like that kind of primal sounding death metal mixed with some punk. I'd even I'd even say that there's like some Matt Pike isms as well placed throughout this record. Maybe some like early black metal stuff, maybe like some Mayhem as well. But so it's kind of like this mixture of all sorts of different influences that, you know, I will say like the main person of this band, it's definitely his band, Chris Ulsh, from Texas. You might know him from Power Trip, Impalers, Innumerable Forms. He's in a ton of fucking bands, and it's kind of like he's known for that. Like he's known for playing all sorts of different, you know, instruments, whether guitar, or he sings in this band, he plays drums in Power Trip. He is just like a workhorse lifer. He's always doing something. But yeah, I think this was my first introduction to Chris and kind of his creative output.
He's like the Taylor Young of Texas.
Yeah.
Taylor's in all of those fucking bands out in California. And then like, you know, Chris is in all of these different bands that are Texas based, if not even only Texas based at this point, at different points. But obviously I became familiar with him through Power Trip, I think, as a lot of people have. I don't know if he was necessarily in the band when I saw Power Trip the first time, but I saw Power Trip at a VFW hall in Louisville in like 2011, 2010. He could have been in the band at the time, but I remember hearing of this band through the Power Trip kind of camp and everything.
I love this band. I think they're a lot of fun. I have a lot of respect for Chris and just, you know, his work ethic and the way that he carries himself and kind of operates as a musician. You know, kind of maybe starting out in this band's history. I mean, like Chris from like an early age was a big fan of metal music. I think he mentions like Master Puppets and actually White Zombie's Astro Creep as kind of like the 2 records that kind of got him into like heavier music. I'm sure that was the same thing for Dill. Those 2 records.
I hate Rob Zombie. I hate anything he's associated with. I'm sorry. I've got a really good friend from back home that is like, that loves everything he puts out. And I'm like, I just don't get it. But I don't have to. Chris gets it, and it's all right. He writes
That's right. I can hear the Astro Creep in this record. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Wow. Like, yeah.
He also kind of mentions there's like a fun like sports tie-in. Bill Wagner from the Houston Astros, I guess his like walkout song was Enter Sandman.
I did know this actually.
Then I believe he kind of mentions getting into some like heavier stuff that really just kind of changed his life. I mean, Discharge obviously being a big one. He kind of mentions Poison Ideas, Pick Your King, Mayhem's Death Crush as well. So just really big into like 80s hardcore, Slayer, just kind of really more extreme kind of out there kind of music. And one thing that I definitely kind of connect with too is not having like an older sibling. So you're almost kind of like having to find a lot of this music on your own. So, MTV's obviously big around this time, alternative radio. So whatever he can find, he's like clearly soaking up and kind of putting in his back pocket, or, like, oh, I like that. I don't know what it is about that, but I have to do it. So around this time too, like early on, he kind of mentions like always, banging on things, kind of just maybe can't sit still. You're playing with highlighters and pencils, you're drumming. I think at first he wanted a drum set, but whose parent wants to hear that all the time? So they sent him up for piano lessons. And I think that eventually transitions into the guitar. And then we're kind of off to the races at this point, because there's people around. There's always someone around. So I don't know at what point they met each other. I know they went to high school together. Brian Beckman, who is the drummer, or the original drummer of Mammoth Grinder, they're kind of like jamming together. And, again, kind of like some of this early, like kind of very like formative kind of bands, like I mentioned, like Slayer, they're just kind of going through that. Maybe some Black Sabbath in there as well. I don't know if this band, there was some conflicting information. I know this band started around like 05, 06. These guys are originally from Houston, but then transitioned to Austin, Texas for school. I saw that, I heard that Chris went to school for math. Like he went to college for math. And then I think Brian went to Austin, some school in Austin for like film and photography. Like I know he has done videos like later on for like bands like Genocide Pact, and also like Iron Reagan, one of my favorite like Iron Reagan songs, Mini Lights. I can remember the video in my head when it came out, but those guys transitioned to Austin, where there is a booming scene. Like just there's bands everywhere. Most notably, maybe Hatred Surge is already at this point, and Insect Warfare, a grindcore band. So you have like a power violence band and a crazy grindcore band. Chris actually does mention a show at a record store where both of those bands are playing, and they're all made up of people that he will eventually like collaborate with at some point. But he remembers going to this record store show where these bands are playing, and like that was a moment where, okay, I'm gonna do this. This is gonna be my life at this point.
Oh yeah. Do y'all have show moments like that?
Probably like I like if we're on the topic of like 2013 and like around the time I'd moved to Bowling Green, like when I went to what was it, the Stone Fox. That was like kind of one of my first introductions into like smaller venue kind of stuff, and that was like the Yautja release show. And you got the Van Hagar van out front. You remember that van?
Yes. Yeah.
It's just, you see all these like interesting, unique people just kind of hanging around, and like that venue itself was so odd. It like looked like somebody's house kind of, and then you go in and it's like a stage and a bar. But I think that was like pretty exciting for me at the time. And then of course like the St. Vita show was like another early one that kind of blew my mind too. So
I got to think about that if shows did, because of where I lived, it was a trek to go to any show. It was 2 hours either way to go to a show. So like shows didn't really hit the way that I think they did for maybe like you guys, having a little bit more access. Not to say like we lived, Swindle lived in a hub in Franklin or anything like that, like where shows were plentiful, but mine were more records. Like I'd buy a record and I would have a moment with that record, and that's like, hey, this is what I want to do. But I know there's a ton of people that they go to a show, they see whatever band, even if it's some band that they don't care about, they see it and there's some moment of like, I could fucking do this better than them, or I could do this, or I'm going to do that. One of those things to help push you forward to know, like, I've kind of found my calling, at least for a period.
Yeah. Swindle, is there a moment that you remember you're like, I'm going to be obsessed with this forever?
I think it's kind of coincidental. I think the very first like local show I ever went to was at a gym in Franklin, and there was a scaffolding set up in the gym, and the vocalist of one of the bands literally climbed to the top of the scaffolding.
Oh my god!
And I was just like, this is fucking wild. It was like it was like seeing Guy from Fugazi hanging upside down from the basketball goal, like just the wildest shit you can imagine happening. And I was like, punk is fucking weird. Punk is wild. I'm in this.
So yeah, essentially in the same kind of vein, goes to the show and wants to, play music, and through that, Mammoth Grinder is really like the first serious band. Like, you're a teenager and you start this, band with your high school friend. Now you're in Austin. They really just kind of get going on it. And I think there is a friend of theirs. I couldn't confirm. A lot of these like early releases are put out through a label called Ghost Hunt Records. I thought maybe at first it was Chris's label, but I think it was a friend of theirs who was just like dying to start a label, and they had songs together. And so they put out this like first 7-inch called Mammoth Grinder Goes to College, which is so cool. Like the first few releases, this 7-inch and Rage and Ruin, it's so feral sounding, and like it's sludgy, and like it's filthy. I have the debut record here. I listen to it all the time. I fucking love those songs. But one thing that he will say, Chris is like often kind of said like maybe they were a little too green. He appreciates that someone was willing to put out those first batch of songs on different formats and stuff like that. But he kind of says like maybe like Extinction, the sophomore record is kind of maybe where they like you can hear the band kind of learning, like as Dylan mentioned earlier, to play their instruments a little better. And then maybe on some of the splits is where they really started to connect. But I think you are almost like kind of building to the record we're talking about today, where it's like, okay, this band has like figured it out at this point. Like, it sounds great. Songwriting's awesome. But yeah, some of this early stuff they're doing, they're not like the biggest fans of. They did some touring for it, but you can't like stream any of this anywhere. Like, I think some people have like ripped it and put it on YouTube, but you go to the band's Bandcamp page, it's not going to be there. Like, it's not going to be, if they can help it, I feel like they would rather this just not exist almost.
Shit isn't underground, it's underwater.
Oh yeah. So, one thing I noticed too is that they kind of have like a revolving door of like bass players throughout this time. The first credited bass player on that 7-inch is Gavin. Don't know who Gavin is. Have no clue. And even there is a version of Mammoth Grinder Goes to College that's like all hand drawn, and it says Chris Campy, who is on the first actual record as well. So I don't know if is Gavin Chris. Who's Gavin? I don't know who Gavin is.
Someone find Gavin.
So Chris Campy's on like the first few releases. Chris Campy. And then he is like replaced by James Hammondtree, who plays on the Obsessed with Death 7-inch. I thought this was interesting because I recognized another project that James is in called Black Magnet that's like been put out on like $20 spin rate. They're like an industrial metal band basically, and so he kind of fills that position. I think there might even be a release, the Hatred Surge split, as I mentioned earlier, like that as a band that was very pivotal and kind of big in the area. They don't have a bass player for that release. It's just the two of them. Yeah, so I mean, they've again that DIY spirit. They're going out on tours in between like college breaks, and I think even at the time of like maybe college winding down, it's kind of where you get Chris like joining like all of these different fucking bands. Like, he's in Hatred Surge. He joins Power Trip. I think that one he joined basically because Blake, the guitar player of Power Trip, was like going to school, or maybe he was not going to be able to fulfill his duties for a show. And so they basically had Chris come and play guitar for them. Almost immediately after that, their drummer leaves. So he's like, well, I play drums and I know these songs now. So that's how he joins the band. So he's just like always doing something.
There's a great quote from Lemmy from like how he joined Hawkwind, and it reminded me of this. Basically, like Hawkwind's bass player wasn't necessarily either cutting it, or he had some sort of drug issue. Like, even in that band, like, oh, I should rephrase that. He had some sort of reaction to a drug and disappeared. And they were just like, hey man, you know, can you help us out? And Lemmy's like, sure. And the quote is, so I nicked his bass and I took his gig.
So there's, you know, there's within a short amount of time, like they're really cutting their teeth. I mean, they have, you know, at least a few 7-inches, a couple records. And then you kind of get to this point we're talking about with Underworlds. I want to mention another band too that was really important for a lot of these like Texas bands, Iron Age. They have a few releases that are really fucking cool. Definitely rooted in that kind of like thrash metal hardcore vein. But I don't think you would have like, not to say that these bands wouldn't exist, but they were Iron Age was very influential on bands like Power Trip. I think you can definitely hear the same kind of sound. Like, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I see where you're kind of pulling from here. Same with Mammoth Grinder. Like, this is just another band that I think carried themselves in a way and put out records that like everybody enjoyed. And it was very impactful on this record. And not only in sound, but also you have 2 members from Iron Age now kind of joining the fold and kind of filling out the second guitar position, which is the first for this band at this point. And then also the bass as well. I think they also had some input as far as like songwriting is concerned, but you basically have the 2 members being Wade Allison and Alex Hughes. So now they're kind of a 4-piece for the release of Underworlds, which was produced by Travis Bonner. He is the sound engineer and owner of a place called the Diamond Factory in Austin, Texas. He had worked on this record as well as, I believe, some of the Cosmic Crypt stuff as well. But he's worked with plenty of other sort of related bands, Eternal Champion, Hatred Surge, Impalers, Graven Right. One of my favorite pieces of this album as well is the artwork. I think maybe before I even knew what this band sounded like, I was just like, I want to know exactly what this is. It's immediately striking. It's got a whole vibe and atmosphere to it. I would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Based on the other artists that this person has worked with, the other like bands or whatever, the other albums they've been featured on, that makes complete sense that you specifically would have seen this album and were like, oh, I gotta fucking listen to this. Like,
yeah. Joe Pantagno, I apologize if I butchered your name, but guy has worked with everyone from Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Nazareth. I mean, especially on the topic of Motorhead, I mean, he is responsible for the iconic kind of snaggletooth logo. Like, that's crazy that you are able to reach out to the guy who did that and have him create artwork for your album.
It's funny because like in reading the notes, reading Nazareth, it like just clicked. I was like, oh shit, he did the Hair of the Dog album. Yeah, like right. That's him. Like that. Isn't that crazy? That's one of those records. Like you look at the art and you're like, I have to know what this is, and you pick it up and it's like, oh, this is one of those things that like there's some cool shit on there. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah,
but it's like it doesn't match the output of the artwork on that one. It's kind of like the first time you see Bad Out of Hell, you're like, oh, this is going to be terrifying. It's like operatic rock and roll.
Right. No, and that Nazareth like album cover too is like, I in maybe in a similar way to Underworlds, like you look at it, it's so grandiose and epic looking, where you like kind of like look at it and I'm like, was that always there? Like the first time I saw the Nazareth record, you see like the big kind of like the dog hair, right? But then there's like little like creature mites at the very bottom of them. Like, I didn't ever notice that before. I don't know why I didn't ever notice that. But it's beautiful. And it totally matches like kind of the sound of the record. It looks very cavernous. This record sounds very cavernous at parts. So
agreed.
I think you just kind of knocked it out of the park in that way. But I just always thought that was fascinating that you could ring up the dude who worked on all these like pivotal classic rock, hard rock, metal records and like have him. I think he even worked on the record after this too. So it's pretty fascinating. So one thing I will say about this band is that I tried to find all the notes that I could. There wasn't like a ton out there. Chris hasn't done like a ton of interviews, or maybe it's just one of those things where with things being more digital now, maybe there's like some zines or something out there that I just was not able to locate. But one thing that I do know for a fact is that Chris and Brian live together and were able to kind of like flesh out a lot of these songs together. So hence why maybe it does sound like at this point where, you know, you had like some of those 7-inches that they're not really a big fan of. I think it really does kind of like click on this record as well.
It sounds more cohesive.
Absolutely. And one thing I did find out about the recording, Chris mentioned in an interview from 2013, the guitar tone is a lot different on this record because I used 2 shitty fixed up strats to get that Repulsion type sound. And then I had a standard sounding Les Paul model under it to give it some clarity. And I think it sounds really cool. And I agree.
And that is remarkable, the fact that how bad were those strats? Because if you're getting clarity from a Les Paul, because those things are just, they're a slab of mahogany. There's like, you can make them sound any way you want, but they're pretty dense sounding instruments, and strats are supposed to be this bright brash things. Like, what did those things go through? What did he put them through?
Isn't a slab of mahogany what they called you in high school, Dylan?
They called me the walking oak.
So stupid. Another quote from that same article: the rest of the process took a really long time because there were full songs and no lyrics or solos. But Travis and I got into this groove where I'd come over one day and lay down one song's worth of vocals and then make up all of the solos on the spot for the song, which made it a lot easier. So
hell yeah.
I think you do get like some of the solos are very kind of like organic, kind of like seat of the pants kind of sounding, but they're fun. But
it's very much the Slayer mindset, but it's all like just standard minor pentatonic.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all that box. There's no like harmonic minor. Like I heard them, I go, yep, these are rock and roll Slayer solos.
Yes.
It's that same mindset of just chaos, but I'm just going to go do a huge full step bend, like rock and roll this shit. Chuck Berry it.
I honestly didn't even notice any of the solos until the final listen. Like, the record starts off with a fucking solo.
Yeah.
But it's like so short that I just didn't even, all the solos are like so short that I don't think I like registered any of them. It's not like a fucking dime bag solo that's like 32 measures long and like it's the only fucking guitar. Like it's not punched in super hot or anything like that. It's kind of buried.
No, totally. And maybe that's just like a good segue to get into the record itself, but like, yeah, it's very forward moving. So it's like, we did it. We gotta go. Like you can't spend your time wasting. And what are you doing, Yngwie Malmsteen? Like, get that out of here. Like, we gotta move.
There's a really good quote, it kind of from the band's earlier career, where Chris was talking about playing with one of the drummers at that point, and he was like, "Yeah, we would try to make our way through a Slayer song, and we'd get stuck, and like, oh yeah, we're just not there yet."
Yeah,
and there's kind of an affinity of that on this album with those solos. It's like, all right, we know our skill set. Like, I want these solos to be wild, but it's very much just a couple of the solos are literally just a slight note and a bend off from the first one and all that. It's very off the cuff, very spur of the moment. Just go in there. Let's overdub. You know, there's probably 35 seconds worth of solos throughout the whole record.
Right.
Like, let's just cram it on there. Like, they fit it. You can definitely hear how quick they were done and probably one or two takes of each one. Maybe. It's just like, fuck it, it's on tape or it's on DAW, get it done.
But, with that said, I think the solo that opens the record, that song alone, the like Underworlds, the title track, is like the first time I ever heard this band. And I think it's only like 90 seconds long, but it kind of encapsulates the whole, it does in 90 seconds what bands like struggle to do on other records that we've heard, or, like they fully get what you're gonna be listening to for the rest of the record. Like, I think that opening line is like so catchy and like melodic, but then there's also like all of this like primal shit that's going on. But here's this guy just kind of like dancing with all of these like little lead lines and little like frills and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I just think it opens the record perfectly.
I like the riff after the solo. I guess it's kind of the main riff. It like feels like they never do the same thing twice in the riff. It's just like calling it meandering seems like I'm talking shit about it, but it's just like a wandering riff that seems like it's always going forward and never doing the same thing twice. And I think that riff is really cool.
Yeah.
It's got a staccato feel to it, kind of thing, without it just being a strict staccato riff, right? Like those are things I like in modern death metal too, are riffs like that can kind of segue into something else and coming back to and adding a different flavor to it, which there are a lot of riffs on this record that are very similar to that. There's even some riffs on here that have like that kind of brought back weird kind of connections to me of like, there's some stuff on here that sounds like kind of modern day Metallica with like some of like the weird, intricate, just really tight single note riffs that are being played throughout. It's like, oh yeah, that's like the Hetfield scale, but it sounds like that modern era of it. Like I'm talking like Death Magnetic and Hardwired, like stuff like that I'm hearing on there. But then again, it all still is in this blender with this Swedish death metal influence, these D-beat punk influences, even some doom metal influences in there for sure. Like that, not even necessarily the strictly doom, but like Death Doom, like all of those like Finnish bands and all that shit.
That dude has like, you know, for maybe not having that like older person in his life to like share some kind of like out there music, Chris definitely seems to have like intimate knowledge with like underground music from all parts of the world, where like I remember there was a what is it, Cult Nation, that website, he did like a playlist of like these Scandinavian punk bands that like I would have never fucking heard of, or like he's maybe sharing like demos of bands that like probably disbanded like after that, or like maybe even before they put out the tape. But so yeah, he's definitely pulling from a lot of areas, it seems. You'll definitely get like a lot of that D-beat stuff on like, you know, tracks like Wrap Around Eyes, where it's like full steam ahead. Some of the songs are very like straightforward in that regard, where it might not deviate from the tempo at all. But then, you know, like with the same track though, Wrap Around Eyes, like there's like a fucking massive like breakdown riff that is like absolutely killer.
Very Converge-esque breakdown there.
That was one of the songs. Wrap Around Eyes is one of the songs. I think that one and Rope Ride were songs that to me seemed more hardcore influenced, because like Wrap Around Eyes started with like the tom beat.
Yep.
And it was like, oh, this is like definitely a mosh part. And then they were like the really fucking slowed down breakdown riff. And I was like, no, this is the fucking mosh part. And then Rope Ride also starts off with like a slow fucking riff. And then the verse riff is in like halftime. And then there's a fucking really slow riff after the solo of that song.
Yeah, the ending is like, I heard the ending riff of that song. Is that what you're referring to? Like the last Celtic Frost. I heard that. I was like, oh, that's to Megatherion, like all of that. I go, yeah, this is Tom G Warrior shit. This is fun.
Yeah.
And what's fun about this record too is there's 10 tracks and there's probably 12 riffs on the whole record. You know, utilizing one riff, playing off of it, and connecting all of those parts with just like D-beat and like punk rock chords and hardcore chords. Like, you know, I had a thought about this record this morning, and you know, I'm a big fan of like deathcore bands, but I prefer bands that are death metal bands that have breakdowns, if that makes sense. I prefer that, you know, but then you look at bands like this that are like punk and hardcore kids playing their take on death metal, and it all falls under the same umbrella, but it's two separate ends of like what's influenced them and where the influences are coming from and how they're put back out, right? You know, Swindle's made the statement, not my hardcore or anything like that. It's very much kind of that same spin, right? You know, Chris came up through punk and hardcore and all those things, and is now hearing these death metal bands and thrash bands and all this stuff from friends and different connections throughout, and is funneling it out in his own way. And this doesn't just sound like HM2 love all over the record. Like it's not, right? But there are points if you threw an HM2 on it, you'd go, oh yeah, this would fit right in with that kind of, you know, with the Black Breaths of the world when they were around, that sort of thing. And like the D beat stuff is really fun. Like the discharge riffs that are on here, like Poison Idea, using that as an example. There's some stuff on here I went like, oh yeah, he's definitely eating, like eat, breathing, and sleeping Poison Idea stuff, because it's on here, which is this very gnarly, like early Black Flag kind of grimy thing that's happening. And Swindle mentioned Roper Ride, and is it Rope Ride or Roper Ride? I'm sorry, did I get it right?
I think it's Rope Ride.
It's Rope Ride.
It's Rope Ride. Okay, I have it written down as Roper Ride. I was doing it pretty quickly, but you look at a track like Roper Ride, or even I did it again.
Yeah.
You look at a track like Rope Ride, and then you look at a track like Moral Crux. Like, those kind of cap off the record for me. And like Moral Crux is this ass beater of a song.
Yeah.
It's got that cool fuzzed out bass, like Nails meets Morbid Angel halftime kind of feel. Just, it's one riff. And it's just kind of a variation of that. It's slow, it's sludgy, it's dirgy. It's still very death metal in vibe, but it's definitely rooted more in kind of like hardcore. And I don't know shit about power violence, but I kind of got that power violence kind of slow beat down kind of thing that they do. And you get all of the influences on here, but you also get the knowledge that like these guys are definitely riding straight from, all right, beat down part, put it in there.
Yeah. It's like, just on a couple of things you said, I mean, we've mentioned on several occasions where like, if you got one good riff, then like, why didn't you know?
Beat it into submission.
But with the hardcore and the punk influence, it's like you're definitely getting that like fast paced, just like it doesn't let up at all. But there's maybe variations on the same riff, but it never feels like, okay, we just have to have another part here. You know what I mean? Like it never feels like it's just like, okay, we played this like 4 times and now we gotta like switch it up. It does transition into parts where like, there's a breakdown, or like there's even like 2-step parts on this fucking record.
There are,
like,
right.
Which is so fun, and it feels so natural the way they're doing it. And it's just I forget which 2-step part it is. Fucking like Breeding. Like some of these songs, like they just kind of slightly change the style of the riff they're playing to make it, just to kind of like add some variety, and it's super cool. But Moral Crux is definitely another point that that you made, where I just love that this record, for the most part, is just like fast and in your face, and then they like end it with like the dirgiest, like slowest fucking song. Is so funny.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like end it with like fast shit for 24 minutes, and like, all right, we're gonna put the longest and the just doomiest song right at the tail end, so it just lulls you into false security.
It didn't end the album, but the thing I thought about immediately was Bridge Burner by Magruder Grind.
Oh yeah,
how when we did that episode, the people in Magruder Grind were like, everyone talks about how much they love that song, and it doesn't sound anything like the rest of our fucking songs. Right. That reminded me of this like immediately.
That's so funny. Yeah, so I mean, you definitely have like some death metal influence, and maybe as I got older and more accustomed to their discography, like I hear like definitely High on Fire, like riffs on some of these songs. You look into Born in a Bag, I heard it on that song. Definitely Revenge was another track that I thought had some like Matt Pike isms, and maybe it's also a Motorhead thing too. I don't know. Like I think you can
that's
kind
what
of,
I got.
Yeah,
yeah.
This band loves the low E, I think.
Yeah.
With some
there's one of those bands just has a little bit more meth, and figuring out which one of those bands it is up to anybody else, right?
You're never gonna figure it out.
You're never gonna figure that one out. Hey, Pelican. It's. Yeah, I definitely got the Motorhead. Like even with the D-beat stuff, like there's kind of Motorhead vibes to that. It's there. I mean, yeah, that's exactly what it is. But you hit on the death metal stuff, and we've talked about it here. And the death metal I hear is definitely more of the European style death metal. I don't hear Florida death metal in this that much at all. It's definitely more of like the Scandinavian,
Entombed,
Swedish,
Entombed,
Dismember. even even venturing further into Europe as well. But I mean, it's a weird blending of like anarcho punk and crust and Swedish death metal without it sounding exclusively like any of those things. There's some thrash-esque stuff on here, but not as much as you would imagine. This band is definitely more rooted in those other influences. Chris is obviously in Power Trip, and he was at this point, and I believe one of their records came out the same year.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, with being in like multiple bands, like 2 records for sure that like definitely came out at the same time: Manifest Decimation and Hatred Surge's Human Overdose, which I remember like loving both of those records and not maybe even knowing the connections with Chris. But those are all like great records in their own right. And, I don't know how much, input as far as riffs would go with Chris on like some of these records. But I mean, how do you have the time to do it and then, do this record? And I don't know. I love it. Do you have any maybe just to kind of close out, I don't know if there's any other points you would want to make, but do you have any favorite tracks, any standout riffs on this record in particular?
I think my favorite song is Barricades. It starts off like nasty and brooding, kind of like slow, and then there's in the chorus of the song, they do halftime, so it like throws off the pace. Much of the album has been fucking blazing fast forward to that point, and the verse riff seemingly is very like simplistic. It seems like it's just kind of power chords, but it's super fucking catchy. And I think like as far as specific riffs, I think one of my favorite parts is and Paragon Pusher. They're like there's an end of the song, and in the end of the song there's just a little part that they stick in only twice that completely throws off like the feel of that riff, and it only happens 2 times, and then like the song's fucking over. And that riff is really cool, and it's so funny that it only happens twice.
My notes reflect Swindle's. I put Barricades as my favorite track on the record for a lot of the same reasons he mentioned as well. There's a riff on that track. It's 59 seconds in that is just stellar. Moral Crux, obviously, but I would even say like Born in a Bag and Breeding, like those last 3 songs, and I will say like the last half of this record feels like it may have been written later, because it does feel like it's a different style than even the front portion of the record.
Interesting.
But I will say like every song starts with a really good riff. I could highlight just a couple, but I'd be doing a disservice. We've already talked about like so many of them that are on here. But I agree with Swindle. Barricades is like the standout track on this record for me overall.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're all kind of in the same boat here. I definitely have Barricades on there. The opening track is always going to be a signature song of the record, just kind of like setting us up and really bringing you in. But Rope Ride, I love. Moral Crux. And then, yeah, I mean, it's just, I think you're right. I think there is a good, at least one, and there's usually many, but there's going to be something in each song that you're going to find that's like fucking cool. Like whether it's a good riff or like a crazy little lead line, or, Chris's, we haven't even touched on Chris's vocals, but I think of Chris's vocals as like almost just another instrument. I have no idea what the fuck he's saying, but they are like just, he's got like all this reverb on it, and it's just so like
of it.
Shouting from a cave. Like it's so cool.
I will say, I couldn't tell you what he says on the first 9 songs. But when it hit Moral Crux, I went, oh, he's mad about something. Like there were certain bits here and there I could pull out. I was like, oh, there's some sort of establishment he's really pissed off at. And that's what I kind of put it together, in which, hopefully it's all of them. But I don't think when it comes to records like this or bands like this, the lyrics and vocals probably are not the forefront of what it need or what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to fit in like it is another instrument. It's atonal. It's death metal vocals essentially. And it's very in that LG Petrov kind of vocal styling from Entombed, that just like almost more guttural punk thing that he does. It's very reminiscent of that. It's a fun record. It's a quick record. It's 28 minutes long. It's less than an episode of Seinfeld. It's great.
Yeah, and one thing I have never seen this band live. Unfortunately, I missed that Nails tour. And I was like, I'd never gotten to see Nails, but I was especially like stoked to see Mammoth Grinder. But all the videos of this band playing live are so fucking cool. I think there's like an older, maybe before this or right around the time of this record, there's one where they're playing like on a cable access station in their local area or something. That's fucking killer. But this album, they went to Australia for the first time to tour on it, and they went with Innumerable Forms, which Chris is a full-time member of now. At the time, I think Justin DeTore, it was just a solo project that he was doing of another guy who is just in so many fucking bands. Like he's in like Sumerlands, and he does Mind Eraser, and like just a slew of bands that people should definitely check out. But I believe he basically got like a lot of the Mammoth Grinder people to do like the backing band for Innumerable Forms at first.
That's funny.
Like, I don't know if he had ever intended for it to be like a full-fledged live band, but I'm assuming Chris did like double duty basically through Australia. They had some West Coast dates. Dylan mentioned Black Breath, so they were playing with that band. And then they did like a like little North American run in the Canada and US areas with, again, bands like Iron Age and Mind Eraser, as I mentioned, Power Trip. They did some dates with Iron Reagan, who like are all connecting little fibers here, because we know that the drummer of Iron Reagan, Ryan Parrish, or Darkest Hour, however you want to do it, is now the drummer of this band. When they kind of like came back, he became the drummer. He's like kind of like the other guy now in my eyes.
Ryan's a good drummer. Always has been. And I mean, he was obviously in Iron Reagan for all those years, and which was kind of a weird thing to think about, from going from a Darkest Hour style band, right? Like traditional Swedish death metal and metalcore and all that, into like, crossover thrash, into crossover death metal even. So like, man of many talents.
Yeah, and with this band, before really getting to that, so they put out this record, and then they didn't do anything for like 4 years. And I'm assuming that Power Trip just took precedent. Obviously, that band blew up for a big period of time, and maybe around 2018, they announced that they were going to be doing a new record, and it featured the band as a 3-piece. Essentially, you had 2 members of Iron Reagan. You had Mark Bronzino, who he also was in a band called ANS I fucking loved. But yeah, you essentially had 2 Iron Reagan members, Mark and Ryan, filling out the rest of the section. I think even Chris went to bass for that record, but he like basically, I think, wrote a lot of the material on that. They toured it, and then that was pretty much it for a while. Obviously, the pandemic happened. I don't think there were any plans to do any sort of Mammoth Grinder stuff for the time being until that Nails tour. I think they were, Nails put out a new record. It was one of our favorite records from last year. They asked Mammoth Grinder to tour with them, and I think Chris, just being the kind of guy that he is, was like, well, I think I could probably put some stuff together. And thus, I think you have their latest EP, Undying Spectral Resonance, which I think he wrote all of the material and like played everything on it. So that's just entirely him. But you also kind of have an updated lineup now. So with Chris being on bass the last record, he's now back on guitar. I think you have one of the brothers from Noisem on second guitar, playing kind of the lead lines.
You are correct. He played with them when I saw him.
Yeah. You have Ryan is still on the drums, and then Andy Horn, who I believe was an early member of
Cannabis Corpse.
He's like a Richmond guy. So he is like connected to all of those types of bands. He is the bass player now. So you have this updated lineup. They're on tour. I don't know if there are any plans to do like a full Mammoth Grinder record in the future. But as we kind of mentioned, it's just every record's kind of different in their own way. Like the early stuff has some sludgy stuff. This is more death metal, oriented, I think. And then this is kind of like full steam ahead into the death metal world. It sounds like more in line with some of that old school death metal stuff. So, I mean, I think if anything, I think there's like an era of this band that anyone can get into. If the old school death metal stuff is more in your vein, you're probably going to love the newer record and the new EP. I kind of like some of the more high on fire sludgy stuff. So like those like first 3 records are like right up my fucking alley. But yeah, I don't know. I just I feel like maybe this band doesn't get talked about enough, or at least I just really wanted to talk about about them. So you know, coming out on the other side of that, what are your impressions of this record? You know, would you go back to it? Have your feelings changed? Like, what do you feel about Underworlds? I
liked it a lot. I think it moves forward very quickly. It doesn't get like stuck on any riff. I actually like. My best friend has been like sending me fucking breakdown bands, like being like, I've been listening to shit like this at the gym. It kind of sounds new metal-y. But I was like, hey, this is like Austin has been. We're doing an episode about this album today. It doesn't have many breakdowns, but like it's fucking fast and it keeps moving, like and it's aggressive as fuck. So yeah, I mean, I already suggested it to somebody.
Nice. Dill?
You know, it's for all the stuff I really like, it outweighs the things that maybe I dislike, which my brain does not allow me to write simple. It does not allow me to write, like, it takes a lot. I have to force it for whatever reason, because in some of the more like punked out kind of parts on here, my brain's like, why didn't he go further with this riff? Or why didn't this riff get a variation and that sort of thing? But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I think it's better than Power Trip. Hands down. Like, I'll make that statement. The thrash revival thing got played out to me real quick. Because by the time that came around, like the whole thrash resurgence, I had already listened to all the thrash bands at that point. I was like, all right, I'm moving forward. Like, cool. I'm glad this band is like getting the success that they deserve. But I think this is far more interesting of a band, especially this record. And that's what intrigues me and would make me want to re-listen to it.
Yeah, I think as far as like the thrash stuff, I mean, I'm a huge fan of like, that's how I got into extreme music. So like having bands like Municipal Waste and Iron Reagan and Power Trip, where like, I think there are a lot of bands that came from that revival that maybe thankfully are not around anymore. But I think at least those like kind of bands like helped me get into more extreme forms of music, just because it was like, oh, these bands are doing the things I like. But as far as this record, I mentioned it came out in 2013. That was like a really big year for me, getting into a lot of different forms of music, a lot of underground stuff. So when I heard this, it was just crazy. Like, this is a crazy record, and it's fast, it's fun. You know, I was a big punk guy as well, so it had that like sort of tendencies as well. And yeah, I don't know. I just it's a record I hold very close to my heart, and so having like some of the newer Mammoth Grinder stuff coming out, I've been kind of digesting that. I definitely like going back and exploring their catalog. So if you haven't listened to it, check it out. Check out the newer stuff as well. It's out on Relapse. You can find those records. I got the latest EP. So Mammoth Grinder. Yeah, Mammoth Grinder. Underworlds. All right, we've reached that point in the episode where we like to recommend some music, some things we've been checking out. I'm going to stay kind of in the Mammoth Grinder camp. Innumerable Forms are releasing a new record, and I mentioned Chris is a member of that band. There are members of various different bands, including Dream Unending, Power Trip, obviously, Iron Lung, No Tolerance. The name of the latest record is Pain Effulgence. I feel like did I get it right? Hell yeah,
you did it. You got it.
Look at me. God. It comes out on August 22nd through Profound Lore Records. There's a single out now called Impulse. Just very 90s death metal. Peaceful Records are very big influence on this band. Maybe some of like the, My Dying Brides or Paradise Lost, but then just like very cavernous sounding death metal. I mean, I've been saying how I should have a ticker of like the amount of times I've said cavernous this episode.
And you spent some time in a cavern essentially yesterday. So
somebody comment and tell us how many times Austin said cavernous.
I need it.
Paul.
Cavernous. Ticker's going up. they're going on tour. They're going to be in like the East Coast, Philly, Richmond, Queens, Boston, Baltimore. So if they're in your area, definitely check that out this August. Another project as well, briefly related to Mammoth Grinder. I mentioned Black Magnet. They have a new album coming out as well. Night Tripping. It's going to be that's one of the singles out, but the album's called Megamantra, and it is going to be out on Federal Prisoner on July 25th. So I guess the week this comes out. Fans of Godflesh, Nine Inch Nails. I think he also mentions like Deftones and Alice in Chains, kind of industrial metal project. So check it out.
My Rex. The first one is a song called Goobar by the band Guck, which features Chappie Hall from, he lives in LA now, but he's from Nashville. He was in Narwhal and he was in Shell of a Shell.
Hollywood Chappie. This is
the second single from this record. The record is going to be Gucked Up. The record is going to be titled Gucked Up. It'll be out August 29 via 31G Records. That's Pearson's label, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
It's cool. It's cool that Chappie's putting out a record that's getting put out by Justin Pearson.
I agree.
My second rec came out July 11, the Friday before we recorded this. It's Pygmy Lush's Totem. I've talked about both the singles from this record. Shit was recorded 10 years ago. They finally decided to put it out via Persistent Vision Records. It sounds a little different than Old Friends. There's some of the kind of maybe more brooding, sad, folky stuff, and there's also some heavier post-hardcore stuff too. It's a good record.
Austin mentioned Deftones, and I will go on a Deftones kick probably once every 5 years or so. And the new single from Deftones, My Mind is a Mountain. It's short. It's less than 3 minutes long. It's pretty fucking solid. It's a fun listen. It's got everything you expect from that band. You've got Chino's kind of shoegaze-esque vocals. You've got those big, thick guitar layers on there. It's fun. It's just a fun one.
Moaning,
what was that?
Some
a lot
sex
of that
noises.
A lot of that. You blew me off track, man. Completely. Like I'm lost at this point. I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name, and I just had it off the top of my head. My second rec is the most recent Relapse release, Never Die, which is a split project between Midwife and Matt Jencik. I really enjoyed it. It's really upsetting. It's really sad. It's really morose. I've been getting up the last few days at like 2:30 in the morning to go into work and have put that on with coffee. I was like, yeah, this is a good way to start the day off. But it's fun. I really enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, those are my recs.
Hell yeah.
I'm surprised. It's still surprising me that you've gotten into Midwife.
Yeah. But
anything Relapse releases, I will typically give a listen to be honest.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, it's all below. You can check it out. Check out those links. We also have official playlists, Riffs on Repeat, Spotify, as well as Hits from the Crypt on Apple Music. You can follow us at Riff Worship Pod on Instagram and Twitter. We also have some reviews on our YouTube page, reviews from the Dilbozer's Den, some more contemporary releases. I forgot to say, this was like also, this episode's going to drop on the 12th anniversary of this Mammoth Grinder record. Which, Austin, why didn't you do it on the 10th or the 15th? I'm like, shut up. How about that? I don't know. It's 12. So other than that, I think we got some guests coming up from both my local area and abroad, which is going to be super fun. We got some really interesting records that one I've never listened to, and the other that I think we've been trying to do an episode on to kind of kickstart maybe a scattered series like our Converge episodes. So stay
feel
tuned.
Good after that one.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So with that said, for myself, for Dylan, for Swindle, you've been listening to Riff Worship. We'll be back next week with something else. Bye.